Hey there, everyone. I'm Hunter Myers, the host of the Brand Bite podcast and the founding creative director here at Verger Design Co. I'm very, very excited to be welcoming Arika Clark Alejo to the show today. So Arika has over 22 years of experience as a business owner, and right now she designs immersive online courses using a multi-dimensional approach. So Arika, 22 years, like lay it on us. Tell us what this has been like.
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm super stoked to be here with you today, so I appreciate it. Oh my gosh, 22 years, there's so much in there. So like as we're going, just stop me and ask questions. I feel like I'm an open book of things. But I'll back up and just start like in my whole journey, I knew that I did not want to work for other people. There's a lot of things that I'm going to say set my journey off early in my life of when I was working for others, like in your 20s and stuff like that. And that I've always somehow crafted myself the most flexible job, even at like companies that are very well known, that are not known to be flexible. Somehow I ended up with these like flexible positions and they're like, Arika, just do what you want. We know you get the work done. Just do whatever you need to do. And then I sort of fell into working for myself by accident.
I love it. I feel like, especially with the pandemic, I feel like a lot of people actually stumbled into entrepreneurship. I know that you stumbled in earlier, but
Yeah.
this is I feel like it was me. That was my story. So tell us how this first transition happened, right? So when you went from working for other people to working for yourself.
Yeah, I started because I became a sign language interpreter. I thought it'd be fun. I was like, oh, you get to talk with your hands all day. That sounds good. Sign me up for the program, went to school, got my license, did all of that stuff. And then it's like, oh, there's no like jobs unless you want to work in a school. And I love my kid and I love some other people's kids, but I don't love all the kids on the planet enough to be like around all day. So but the only other option is literally to work for yourself and to be a freelancer and to do all of that. And I didn't know that going into it, but that's just what everyone did. So you're just like doing the thing, not realizing that you have to know how to like invoice and do paperwork. And, if you're not working for an agency, find your own client and negotiate contracts. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm running a whole business. So I'd say that's how the early part started. I didn't even know I was running my own business when I was running my own business. And I would say that carried for many years. I just didn't understand that doing all of that stuff meant that I was running a business.
Yeah. And so after those couple of years, what did you do? Like when you really realized it hit you, okay, wait a second. Like I'm running a business. I'm doing this thing. What was that epiphany like for you? What did you do? Did you change how you were running things? Did you continue on how you were going?
Yeah, that's funny. It's an interesting question because I think when I realized it and then I was like, wait a minute, that means I don't have to do all the work. I can have other people do the work and earn money while they're working. And I started an interpreter agency. So that was kind of, I feel like for me, that really felt like now I run a business as opposed to before that, even though I was running a business, it's like perspective. So I started a sign language interpreter agency in there of just doing what I was doing, but able to come under the more of the business side because I did understand contracts and invoicing. And as I had learned it over the years and able to manage that for others. So that was like I'm going to say the first part of my career journey before I had a big shift. And I know you're going to be like, tell me all about it.
Right. I'm like, okay, tell us the shift. We're ready. We're ready.
Yeah. So 16 years into that journey, I started getting burnt out. And this is what I always say, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize that you can get burnt out in your own business. They're just like exhausted in it. But I was getting burnt out. I was sort of unhappy with some of the trends that were happening in the profession. And at that time, I had a friend also in the profession. She was kind of in the same boat as me on the same journey. And she was like, I signed up for this coaching program. And I'm like, I'm so jealous. And I talk to her all the time. And every time I talk to her, I was like, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. And then I'm like, why can't it be me? Why can't I do the same thing? A, I'm going to be a copycat, but B, I was like, why can't it be me? Because I felt like I had invested education, time. I mean, now we're looking at 16 years into that career. I'm like at the top of my career. I'm teaching at the college. I'm going to say known in the profession, but not like in a famous sense, but like in Chicago, like it's a small community. So people know who you are, like, but it's okay. I had to like come and give myself grace to say, I can want something different. I can do something different, and I can be the age I am and do something different.
Yeah.
So I did.
Right. Well, I really like that you bring up kind of the turmoil that was happening at first, right? Okay, wait, like, can I really do this? Can I make this shift, especially a shift that, perhaps felt so big? But I feel like, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like from what you did previously, you were able to kind of pull some of what you learned over those 16 years and use it again, right?
For sure. I mean, a lot of what I had done. I mean, I had a graduate degree in adult ed. I was teaching, I was running events in my business. I was doing a lot of that. So to come into the coaching space, it was easy to take a lot of those tools. And I'm a lifelong learner. It's one of my top values. So for me, I'm like, well, I get to go back to school. That's great. I know most people dread it, but I'm like, that's so cool. I get to learn more. So I think it did make it a little bit of an easier transition. And also I saw people in jobs that they hated. And I was like, and I was there. I was like, I used to groan. People would be like, how are you doing today, Erica? And I'd be like, ugh. And I got to a point that I was like, okay, groaning is not an answer. And nobody wants to hear that. Like, you get to create the life that you want. So how do I create it? And I'm going to say since that time, it's been a lot of hard work to get to where I'm at. So it wasn't an easy transition by any means, but it was needed.
Yeah. What were some of those challenges that you came up against as you were going through this transition?
Yeah, I would say, I won't say my family at all, because they're all like super supportive. My husband's like, do what you love, babe. We'll figure it out. So I'm like, hey, I invest all this money, get education, stop doing what I'm doing. But I would say like really the challenge was my own mindset around, I don't know. It's not like feeling like a fraud, and not imposter syndrome at all, but like just that, like, am I letting down a community that I've been in for so long, leaving this profession, leaving sort of, you're at like the top of your profession, doing well, all this stuff, to start at the bottom of another one. I mean, that's a big mindset shift. Luckily, I was in a coaching program and a lot of people were coaching me.
Right. So do you feel like the coaching then is what really helped you overcome some of those pieces?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think just like having a support network, I have an amazing community around me. So aside from, now I have a lot of friends that are coaches, but my husband, my best friend who's not in the profession, but like all these people, it's community. And I say it all the time to people who are entrepreneurs or who are new in this space. And I'm like, your community is everything. I have, I work virtually and stuff. I mean, I have people that I talk to every day, and it would be people that you would normally pass through in the office, right? You stop at their desk in the morning or at lunchtime, and I have that same community. Sometimes I even have lunch with my friends. They're like, oh, let's have lunch while we're both working, and that's okay. But I think that's what's so important. And I feel like very lucky to have had that.
Absolutely. And I feel like the community is something that I talk about a lot with people as well. Like anyone who's thinking about getting into entrepreneurship, stumbled there for a second, especially in the online space. Because I mean, when you're in the online space, oftentimes you work from home, you don't have those coworkers, you don't have those connections. And so you have to sometimes step even farther outside of a box to start to make those. So when you were, getting started, I know you had the people in your community like physically, but how did you build that online community as well? How did you find those online friends and networking opportunities?
Yeah, I would say just from like groups or things that I was in. So, the business I was in before, and because of the regulations and because like ADA and things that are required, we were in demand. I didn't advertise, I didn't market, I didn't do any of that. And now as I'm switching into this coaching space and learning like, oh, I'm selling myself, I'm selling, what can be when you go through coaching and the amazing stuff that you can have. It's very different. And I was like, I have to learn marketing. I have to learn strategy. I have to learn all these pieces that literally just fell in my lap before that. And, big learning curve, right? So this other piece, but I think through a lot of those programs, it's people that were on a journey in a very similar space as me. And some of us have like, oh, what are we going to do next? Or, then you meet the sort of I'm going to say the next level of people that you continue to grow and build your base as you're continuing to be out there. And now I build courses for clients, and sometimes those clients become really good friends because we work together so close that by the time we're done, we're friends. And getting to see them and getting to interact with them. So I think it's just looking for it in any place that feels like it's a good fit. And I have no hesitation, as you know, because I've said to you, we got to get together in person.
Yes.
Like you just have to make the ask and see what magic can happen and just be open to it.
I really like that you've said, you just have to make the ask.
Yeah.
I think that's something that, especially when you're starting out, like you can feel a little timid. I know I was terrified. I was like, I mean, who am I? Who am I to step into this space, and ask, well, hey, like, would you tell me your secrets of how you made it in entrepreneurship? And I feel like it's such an important piece though. Like just ask, put yourself out there first. And oftentimes people are, in my experience, have been very excited to reciprocate and get together because we're all just like, please, more friends, more people who get it, because corporate doesn't get it.
Not at all. And I think like post COVID, if I can post COVID, I don't even know if that's the right words, but like, it's very different too, to interact with other business owners, with the standard of how we interact as human beings has drastically changed since 2020. And then how we conduct business and how all those pieces go, all of it. So it's not that meaning build your relationship and you have to be in person, but I think it's just so different to put yourself out there and what that means in the last several years compared to before.
Absolutely. Now, would you be open? Because I started my business within the pandemic. And so I'd love to hear what some of those shifts have been, right? Because like I'm only on like the latter half. So please tell us, for everyone else who started around the same time I did, what the differences are.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, because I had a big career shift at the pandemic time. So the first career shift is like me being like, okay, I'm leaving this career, I'm going, like by choice. And I would say the one during the pandemic, I mean, I guess everything's by choice, but there was a little bit more of like, wait a minute. So right before the pandemic, I had sold my interpreting business, gave away all my interpreting business and stuff. And then was like all in coaching because business had picked up. It was doing well, all of those things. And then the pandemic hits and it was just really hard, right? Losing a lot of business, as many people did, and just all of that. And a couple months in, all of my friends, my network started coming to me and they're like, Arika, how do I get my stuff online? How do I get my programming online? How do I, I was supposed to deliver all these trainings and now I'm supposed to do them online. What do I do? How do I do it? And I had been doing it in my business for a long time, running events, doing programming, doing curriculum development, design, and all of that stuff. So I started helping people. And then I was like, wait a minute. I had a dear friend of mine. She was like, I pay you a lot of money to do this for me all the time. And I'm like, oh, really? And then I was like, I think this is it. And that transition was a little bit hard as well, because I will say I had just soaked a lot of money into becoming a coach within the last few years before that. And I didn't, like it was still new-ish enough, but I was ready to jump. I was like, I'm ready to go. So I made that. And then I sat with it and I was like, oh my God, all that money I spent on coaching and training and things, and it was a waste. And it wasn't until maybe a year ago that one day I was like, it wasn't a waste. I needed every one of those tools I learned in my interpreting business, that I learned in my coaching business, that I do at the coaching, because honestly, a lot of my clients now are coaches, and I can build for them like the back of my hand because I can help them. I understand them. I speak their language. And I was like, oh, I needed that to get to here. But I think that's it, right? Like the pandemic was, before it was like a lot of stuff in person, some online. I think when you were online, it was kind of, it was sort of innovative in a way. Like, yeah, a lot of people were there in that space, but you could stand out easier. And I think now it is a little bit harder because everyone is online. Everyone knows how to use Zoom. Everyone is there. So I think in some ways it feels a little bit harder to stand out from the crowd compared to pre-COVID.
Yeah. So this is a question I'm just asking as we go through this conversation. I'm curious how you help your clients stand out then. Like, what do you do now that the market is perhaps a little, I mean, I'm seeing courses online all the time, right? It's like, how do you help them kind of stand apart and build courseware that like actually really teaches people?
Yeah. It's it's interesting. So our whole thing is a video and a handout is not an online course. So especially during COVID, yeah, right. Especially during, you couldn't see, but Hunter was like,
Thank
yes,
you.
yes. But during COVID, everyone was like, just throw it online. So just deliver this training. So even before COVID, what we saw is a lot of video type things. You get into a course and it's an hour long of videos and maybe there's a handout, and then that everybody's like, that's a course, that's a course. Big companies have had access to other tools that have been able to provide more immersive and interactive experiences where you can, I'm going to say, play games to learn, where we follow more of like the progressive ed type philosophy as opposed to the traditional most schools K through 12 and college are teaching towards how we taught for the industrial age. So if we're like, when individuals are going to go to the factory, you sit, you learn, you take notes, you do, we tell you, you do. But progressive ed is like, how can you experience it? How can you, it's project-based, it's that. So we take that model and put it into a course, and most people haven't seen what we do in the small business world, in the entrepreneur world. They don't know that you can have something where people are playing and they're able to reflect on their learning within a course and experience it. And you don't have to just stand there for video after video. You can let them get a bite-sized piece of information and then play with it. And you take them on that journey. And it's really pretty cool, I will say. I have clients that come in and they have courses and we up-level their courses. We do a lot of that. And some of them, they'll usually change their prices by 2 to 3 times because they feel so much more confident in the delivery because they're different. So anyway, thanks for letting me soapbox that, because I just get so passionate around education. I'm like, oh, I just want to change the whole narrative of education in business.
Well, I think it's so important. Like learning, I mean, even I love that you brought up that we still teach people like it's the industrial age.
Yeah.
Because it is, I mean, you're taught to a test, right?
Yeah.
And like, especially if you're an entrepreneur or an adult and you're purchasing a course online, like there's not a test, like I'm not sitting here trying to figure out, is it going to be A, B, or C? I'm trying to figure out how I can apply this. And you can't do that as well if it's just, here's these bullet points, take these notes. So I absolutely love that you guys are stepping up to the plate and starting to change how some of that is done and introducing more of that, because I think that is the way that education overall needs to be shifting, but especially in this online space.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think it just like, as a business owner, you want to stand out. You want to be different than the crowd, but not so different that it's like, what is that thing? But different in a good way, right? That get your clients results, that helps you save time. Because I think and we're here talking about some of the problems with entrepreneurship. There's just not enough hours in the day to accomplish everything as a business owner that you want to, between doing your work and doing, the accountant's job and the marketer's job and the social media team's job. When you're like the, one person show, it's really hard to do all of that. And so I think looking for ways to be able to free up your time, courses is a great way to do that, but there's a million other ways, but it's hard. I don't know. I always say like, can't I just do what I do all day, like be a genius at what I do all day, but I have to have like all these other hats. And I'm like, oh, I don't like the fisherman hat today. I don't like the cowboy hat today. Like, where's my tiara?
Right. Well, and I love it because I feel like this is the type of conversation where we always circle back to the hats. Right. And so I'm going to switch gears off of education. Again, if you want to learn any more about this, seriously, everyone reach out to Arika. This is really important stuff. But outside of that, like the hat piece, how do you navigate and manage that? So originally, so in your first business, you hired
Yeah.
on people and a team, but as you're switching and you're investing the money in like the learning and all of that, and maybe you don't have the money to invest in a team, how do you navigate and balance the hats while still getting stuff done, like for clients?
Yeah. Oh, a couple different ways. One, I'll say early on, I had, some people to do the work. It was great. And then I had no one and I was doing everything. And I've now hired a team again. So it's the best way to go. It allows you to scale the fastest, I think, of just being able to delegate some of those tasks that are lower value for you as a business owner. They're not low value tasks, but for you as a business owner, it's a time balance thing. And so I would say that is part of it, is looking to see what you can outsource, even if it's little pieces, even if it's something that's this task that takes up however long of your day, like, can you outsource a little piece of this as you can? So that's one that I think is like really necessary. And you almost have to do it before you're ready. That's what I find. You can't like, oh, when I get there, then I'll hire. You kind of have to hire a little before you're ready. So that's one piece. And then the other one is trying to just the best I can, but blocking off the calendar. Is it a CEO day once a month to handle whatever, a little time? I don't schedule stuff on Fridays. Very rarely will I schedule something on a Friday, because I'm like, I need sacred time. I need my creative time. So I have certain times that I'm like, I block out and I'm like, I can't have calls because I need creative blocks. So I think recognizing, for anybody that's listening, recognizing what you need, and then where do those blocks fall? Where do you need to uphold boundaries to get it done? And it's very hard. My boundaries are like a waterbed or something. They just kind of, sometimes they ebb and flow, but I think it's really important to try to say, this is the time where I'm working on marketing, even though I don't like it. This is the time I'm doing these things.
Yeah. And I want to touch on both these points again. So first off, the hiring before you're ready. This is huge. I actually just had this conversation with another person where it's like, you've got the, okay, well, how do I afford to do it? Right. But I got to hire the person in order to make more money to afford to do it. So you can't find the person without paying them, but you can sometimes find the money.
Yeah.
So it's just figuring that out. So I love that you brought that up. And then the time blocking, that is huge. And I know, and I don't know about you, but for me, I also had to sit down and figure out, like, when am I most creative? Because what I was finding was, I was like, well, I'll just do all my calls in the morning so that they're done with and over. And then, but I realized after like sitting down and mapping out my own energy levels, I don't want to do any creative work in the afternoon. I don't want to do any, like, mornings are my most creative time. And so I think as you're figuring this out, like as an entrepreneur, really see what works for you and know that your time blocking may be very different from someone else's time blocking. And it's okay to have those ebbs and flows as you need to, but still be protective of some of those times. Like, I love that you take Fridays, like, as that guarded time. And, sometimes will you put something in there, but for the most part, it's like, no, like, this is my time.
Yeah. And it's funny because even though I block off time, and sometimes I will end up working, or I'm gonna work 2 hours, or I'm gonna like do laundry, but I find that I'm actually more productive when I take time off, which feels like, as a human being, counterproductive, because it feels like I should be working more hours. But honestly, when I work less hours, I get more done. I think you're just more strategic in your time. And the other thing, can I add one other, like, I'll say piece of advice is, in that sort of having good boundaries, but I think it's like, I used to schedule clients whenever they wanted to meet. I was like, whatever, like, because I wanted to accommodate and be flexible. And now I get to a point I was like, I don't have anything for 2 weeks. And that's just the way it is. And I mean, my clients are different because they fit in, but especially like prospect calls or things like that, I'm a little bit more, when can we fit them in? And I think that's important as an entrepreneur, is like protecting your space, whether it's calendar space or your boundaries. And it's really hard. And I think just acknowledging that it's easy to sit here and be like, yes, Hunter, this is it. But I'm like, it's really hard. But my community supports me, and they're like, Arika, aren't you taking a lunch today? Aren't you doing these things? You said you were going to do this, but that's, community as well.
Well, I think it's so great that you bring up this point too, that it is difficult to do that, because it is like, it's very easy. And I don't know about you, but I definitely fall into like people pleaser tendencies to be like, oh, well, look, I'll squeeze, I was going to eat, but it's fine. Who needs to do that? Right. Like, let me go ahead and get you in here for this call. And so so aside from the community, like kind of reminding you, which is great, like people seriously find your community, but are there any things that you also did personally to maybe let go of? And I don't know if you felt guilt, but like, I feel guilt when I'm not taking someone in, or like, I'm like, hey, sorry, like I don't have time for a couple weeks. Like, how do you navigate that personally and internally?
Yeah. I struggle with it still. Um, but when I do it, I'm so proud. I message my people. I'm like, I did it. I told this client I couldn't start with them for a month, and I'm like, the world didn't come crashing down. And I like sort of put faith in my higher power of like, if it's meant to work out, it is. And if for some reason they can't deal with that timeline, they're not my person. Like, it wasn't meant to be for them. And that's okay too. But that takes a lot of work to get there. And some days I still like, oh my God, I can't say it. And then instead of saying a month out, I'll be like 3 weeks. And then like, I beat myself up when I hang up. I'm like, why did I say that? That last week's going to be a nightmare because I know I'm busy, and so I think that there's some reality expectations that just, trial and error, but you do it enough times. And then you're like, I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to feel rushed and overwhelmed and frustrated and kicking myself and not eating and, all of those things, but you do it enough that you're like, no more. And honestly, as a business owner, it puts you in the seat of authority when you say no. And that's a real like right concept, but it really does put you in the authority when you're like, I am too busy to do it till then. I am, as opposed to I'll schedule it anytime. People are like, ooh, she's very busy. It's true. And it does move you into a little bit of an authority figure when you can uphold those boundaries. People really do respect it.
Yeah. And I like this authority figure concept and the idea of saying no. Because I think, again, that's something early on that's really, really difficult to do. Do you have any suggestions for people as maybe like practice or anything like that? Like, I like that you were like, sometimes I'll just sometimes say 3 weeks instead of the full month, and I'm beating myself up about it, but you know what? It's better than saying the 1 or the 2 weeks. So like any tips for people?
I think you just have to practice it with some low risk stuff. I mean, that might even mean like friends and family of being like, no, when they're like, do you want to jump on this call? And, and you're like, no, I think it's really just practice because you have to get comfortable with it and then you can do it. It's not going to happen until you practice it or until you do it enough times. So you might as well start and try it on some low risk stuff, some things that the world's not going to crash down if you tell them no.
I love it. Well, Arika, I have one final question for you. It's one of my favorite questions to ask people. And you've been in the entrepreneurial world for about 22 years now. So now that you've been here for a while, what is one thing that you would like to change about the entrepreneurial space?
Yeah. It's a fantastic question. I'm very passionate about this is that there's no overnight success. I won't say no. There's like 1%, 2%, whatever the number is that have overnight success. But I think there's a lot of programs out there that preach like, you'll get 6 figures in next week and next quarter and these, big numbers. And I think that it sets people up for failure in many ways. And it's prevalent in our community. I would say that. And the flip side of it is on the other side, a lot of people are like, raise your prices, charge all these extra, you can be a millionaire. So charge them $10 million. And to me, it's just like, it's so out of alignment. I mean, those are the two pieces, right? What they're telling people, you can make all this money. And to do it, you got to charge your clients like $50,000 for like 3 months of coaching or something. And it just feels like a very big disconnect. It leads to a lot of mindset issues around expectations and things. And I would love to change that. I want people to dream and know it's possible and reach for it and do and charge more and things like that. But it's interesting. my little community and we talk about it often, how it set entrepreneurs really up for failure when the expectations are something that 2% of the people, yes, it will happen to, but 98 it won't.
And I think this is so, so important. And everyone, if you're listening, like rewind and re-listen to this piece, please, because it does set so many people up for honestly a lot of disappointment. You give up on yourself when you aren't hitting those numbers or reaching those goals. I think it's also sometimes hard to remember that, and don't hate me, world, for saying this, but these people are also millionaires because you guys are all buying their course, which they're not necessarily telling you that part. It's like, yeah, like raise your prices and everything, but they're also like increasing the revenue because you're buying this course. And buy the courses, like, please, like, learn. That is the biggest part of entrepreneurship, is getting out here, testing things, learning, trying, all of that. But I absolutely agree with you. Like, we need to change the way that we're marketing these courses. We need to change the way that we're teaching people. We need to change the things that we're guaranteeing, and maybe putting some new standards in place. So I can stand on this soapbox all day long. So grateful that you brought it up, because this is one of the things that I would love to change. So Arika, again, thank you so much. How can people get in contact with you? I want people to reach out. I feel like you have so much to offer and give, and so many fabulous insights. So tell people how they can find you.
Yeah, totally. Our website is www.thriveepic.com, THRIVEEPIC. And then I'm pretty much on all social media most social media, sort of. I'm not real good at TikToking yet. My daughter makes fun of me when I try, so I got to work through that mindset thing. But I'm on most social media channels. You can find me like at Arika Clark Alejo, or through the business at Thrive Epic. So come hang out, come find me. I'd love to chat.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Seriously, this was a blast.
Yeah, thank you so much. I can't wait. I know we're going to meet up in person, so I'm like super excited for that.